Ladies and gentlemen and everything in between, my name is Matt Paradoxician, and we're back today to teach you all how to host your very own Minecraft server absolutely free of charge. Let's get into it. Alright, so first things first, we're going to want to determine what type of Minecraft server we're actually looking to host. The three sort of major Minecraft server types at the moment are vanilla, spigot, and modded. Vanilla servers are just the game. There's nothing added to them or modified about them. It just lets you play with friends. Spigot servers are essentially just optimized bucket servers, allowing you to add new or modified content to the game without actually modifying the game itself. Essentially, this means that you can join on the regular Minecraft launcher, but still get more out of the game than you would with vanilla. Modded servers, however, add content and modify the game in ways that require that you have an entirely separate launcher. If you have questions about how to make your own mod pack, feel free to refer to my modding Minecraft video, because today I'm just going to be going over the server setup itself. With all that being said, feel free to use the chapter selection or the timestamps on the screen to hop to the portion of the tutorial referring to your Minecraft server type. If you've reached this portion of the video, I'm assuming you either forgot to choose your timestamp or you're here for the vanilla server setup. It really shouldn't come as a surprise, but vanilla Minecraft servers are the easiest to download and get started with. All you have to do is hop over to the Minecraft launcher, find the installation for the version you'd like to host a server on. In my case, that'll be 1.21.5. Go over to the right side drop down menu, press edit, and then over the drop down menu for the version itself, you will find a server download link. This will open directly to the Microsoft or Mojang download page and immediately start downloading your server.jar file. It's kind of hidden behind my face here, but it is there. Once you've downloaded your server file, you're going to want to create a folder for it. I'm just going to create a folder on my desktop, but it doesn't matter where it is or what it's named. What's important is that the server.jar file goes inside of it, because when you run your server, it's going to generate some related files such as your whitelist, your ops, your server properties, and you don't want that to be all mixed up in your downloads because one, it's just hard to find those files once you start downloading more things, and two, it could cause issues with your server if you have files in your downloads that it's trying to interpret as server files. So I'm just going to create a folder on my desktop here, call it server, and drag my server.jar file right in there. Now, technically, as far as server setup goes for vanilla, you're done. All you would have to do is double click that server jar, it'll make your files, agree to the EULA, double click it again, and boom, you're good to go. But I'm not going to recommend that for two reasons. One, this doesn't let you change how much RAM is allocated to your Minecraft server, meaning that if you have more players, it might not run as well as you'd like. And two, if you have a custom startup script that allows you to make that RAM adjustment, you can also make adjustments to the flags given to Java, which essentially just means you can make it run better. Use the chapter selection below or the timestamp on screen, and I'll meet back up with you to discuss custom startup scripts. Alright, so you want to do some plugins. I love it. Let's go ahead and download our Spigot server. Over the years, it has become so much easier to download Spigot officially. All you have to do is navigate to spigotmc.org, where they have the build tools installation. Make sure you grab the appropriate installer for your particular operating system, in my case that's Windows, and run it. When you run build tools for the first time, you may get a warning from Windows that it's from an unknown publisher. Just ignore that, it's totally safe. Press more info and hit run anyway, and you'll get this UI here. On the build tools UI, you can select your server version from 1.8 all the way to the latest version. And you can also select your output directory. This is the important part. You don't want your server to be downloaded into the downloads folder. When your server runs, it's going to generate server related files, and you don't want those all intermingled with your downloads for two reasons. One, you don't want to have to navigate that, and two, it could cause issues with your server trying to interpret downloaded things as server files. Instead, let's go ahead and press select. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'll just make a new folder called server that I'll have it download into. Once that folder's created, go ahead and press compile and just wait. It may take a minute, but once your build tools is finished compiling, you should get a message that says something like this. We can go ahead and close out of build tools now and check out our server folder. Look at that, our server jar file is created within our folder, and now it's time to get running. But we can't just double click this particular jar file. That only works with vanilla. Instead, use the timestamp on screen or the chapter selection below to go to your first custom startup script. So you've chosen the server type of Doom and Despair. No, I'm just kidding, but I will be going over specifically Forge modded servers in this tutorial, Fabric is generally the better option nowadays, but it's also kind of lacking in the sense that it doesn't go back in Minecraft history as far, and a lot of mods are still specifically Forge only. Despite the doom and despair that comes with modding, downloading Forge itself has always been pretty easy. Now I'm going to be downloading 1.20.1 because at the moment that's one of the more popular versions of the game to mod, and it also allows me to show you the idea that there is a latest and recommended version of Forge. In this instance, they're the same. That's not always the case, so I always say to go for the recommended because that's going to be the stable version of Forge. And grab that installer. Make sure when you get pages like this as well, you're not hitting the wrong download button. You'll have to wait about 5 seconds, and then the download will pop up in the upper right corner. Once you've downloaded and run the Forge installer, it should look something like this. You're going to want to get the client to be able to play on your server, but obviously that's not what we're here to do, so let's get the server itself. You'll get a warning. It's going to try and install to the Minecraft directory. Don't do that, obviously. Instead, click on the alternative directory, and then make a folder somewhere. I'm going to make a folder on my desktop called server, so that all my server files are in one place, and nothing gets confusing. Once you've chosen that folder, go ahead and hit OK, and then just wait for the install. It's pretty quick nowadays, but it might take a minute regardless. So I may have accidentally skipped the little confirmation window, but once your server is downloaded, it will tell you that it's finished and you can press OK. Regardless of that though, you can see that my files are all here in my server folder. Now, Forge is nice because you don't actually have to make a run script. It gives you a couple. You don't need to save the .sh one if you don't want to. That's for Linux and Mac users. But if you are a Windows user like myself, you can go ahead and run your server using this right here. That being said, you do need to port forward your server still. So you can jump to the timestamp on screen or use the chapter selection below to go to that portion of the tutorial and get started with the last steps of your Minecraft server. Alright, now it's time to reconvene and talk about running our server. So in order to customize the amount of RAM or any of the Java flags given to our server, we're going to want to create a run.bat or a server start script. In order to do this, we first need to create a new text document, specifically a text document. You may be tempted to do a Word document or a rich text document because the editor is a little bit nicer than Notepad, but that won't let you save in the way that we want to save when it comes time. Now, I'm not going to try and teach anybody how to code here. I'm just going to give you the commands you need to write your script in the description below. Take those, copy, and paste them into your new document, and we'll break down what's going on here. The first and third lines we don't need to pay particular attention to. Those are just day-to-day operations for the actual console, whereas the middle line is what's important. What we're going to focus on is these two particular arguments. The first one, Xmx8G, is the maximum amount of RAM that your server is allowed to use. In my case, I have set that to 8 gigabytes. For a modded server, that is pretty average. For a vanilla server, it's probably a little more than you need. What's important is that you allocate what you feel is best for your server and what you have on your machine. I have 32 gigabytes of RAM on my machine, so I can easily spare 8 gigabytes. But a lot of common laptops have only 8 gigabytes of RAM, which means you probably shouldn't be allocating all 8 gigabytes to your Minecraft server. The next argument, if you can guess, is the minimum amount of RAM that your server is allowed to use. This is sort of just so that the server can optimize itself. You don't necessarily always need to be using 8 gigabytes of RAM, especially on a vanilla server. 4 gigabytes is more than enough to run it, so having a little bit of range is not a bad thing. The last thing that I do want to make note of is this portion right here. The -jar is not particularly important. That's just saying to remove the file extension from the name. But you want to make sure that this server portion matches the name of your Java file in the folder. In my case, it does because I'm running a vanilla server, but if you are running a Spigot server, it might be called something else. Alternatively, you could leave the script saying server and just rename the jar file. That's all up to you. Once the server start script is configured to your liking, hop up to File and Save As. Save As will allow us on Notepad to choose all files for the type and then name it run.bat, which stands for the batch file type, and save it into our server folder. Voila! Now we have our run script, and we're ready to move on to the final step of our server, port forwarding. Oh boy. Port forwarding has always been sort of the cliche worst part of starting up a server, which is ironic because it's actually pretty straightforward. So I'm actually here on my iPhone now because I have Spectrum Internet, and the last step to getting your server accessible to people outside of your internet network is to port forward the port 25565. As you can see, I've already set up my rule for the vanilla server, and I've given it the external and internal port 25565 over the protocol TCP and UDP. I believe it only actually uses one of those protocols, but most modern routers allow you to do just both, and it'll work the same. Your process is probably going to look a little bit differently if you don't have Spectrum Internet, but what you're going to want to look for is somewhere where there is port assignment or port forwarding rules. Once you've done that and you apply it to your internet, users will be able to join your server using your public IP address, which can be attained very easily by just Googling what is my IP. And there you have it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, or better yet, join the Discord. I know that port forwarding can be a little bit weird depending on your provider and everything, so happy to answer any questions you have about that or anything in this video. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoyed the tutorial. Feel free to drop a like if you did, maybe even subscribe, stick around a little while, and I'll see you next time.